Welcome to part 2 of my summary for Half-Life, taking us through till the end of the game. In Power Up, you meet a Garg, which is pretty much invincible, and you've got to run through a room with it in. I made the mistake of leaving it too late, and ended up sustaining quite a lot of damage as a result. I then messed this bit up by panicking and running, thinking I was going to die otherwise. To put it simply, I went a long way, then got killed like this in a really unfair, unavoidable encounter. And it loaded me back to the start of it all again. This time I took it slower and went to the track control room first, and learned the goal of this level is to restore power to the trams that it can take you to the surface.
You can get the power on. That train will take us straight to the surface.
So you fight your way through a series of corridors, then begin to face soldiers starting in a room with toxic slime at the bottom. At the top of this room you come to this one, which I remember from my first playthrough as being one of the hardest bits of the game. The enemies don't reveal themselves until you're already stuck in the middle of it. But then they keep coming. It's here you go down the lift that killed me last time, but this time I lobbed a grenade down first to detonate the trip mines. After a room of hound eyes, you must unblock the engine that's situated in the basement level. Took me a while to realise, but yes, these are little leech things in the water, and yes, they do block your movement and drain your health. You unblock the machine at the end, trigger the power, then must fight your way back all the way through where you came from. And now the bit that I hated as a child. You've got to run through that bit with the Garg in again. And it's faster than you. With that dealt with, you hop on the train and plough through a barrier to the next level. And this is such a letdown because after seeing it plough through a concrete wall, you'd think it could go through anything. But this isn't the case anymore.
You're supposed to take this old rail system up to some kind of satellite delivery rocket.
On a Rail is the most confusing chapter of Half-Life 1. I don't like it. It's a maze of rails, but at each stage you inevitably come across a barrier of some kind and must find a way to clear it. You must fight aliens, soldiers, and powerful gun turrets. I think back in the day it was less frustrating because vehicles like this one were quite a novelty at the time, and I didn't mind getting lost or travelling through the same bits a few times. But in this playthrough I just found it annoying, and often didn't know if I was making progress or if I was going the wrong way. Take a look at this bit. You're going up a lift of some kind, but it also rotates so it throws your aim off. And it leaves gaps around the edges, which made me fall to my death a few times. Much to my delight, this led to more rail mazes and blockades. I'm pretty sure I skipped whole parts of this level. I was expecting to return to them at some point, but then would find I was already heading on to the next. But just know that there's a lot to explore in these tunnels. Eventually you reach a sandbag wall and have to head off on foot until you confront this sandbag bunker. I'm not sure if there's a clever way of beating these, other than to lob explosives at it until one of them goes in and it stops shooting at you. And eventually realised that I had to walk up to this blast door here, which would then automatically open. After a few guards I came to another tram segment. This one's more about dodging enemy projectiles and laser beam triggers. You eventually reach this room, which looks innocent enough, but there are enemies hiding behind pretty much everything in here, and another sandbag turret which I swear is close to impossible to clear. You can beat it from a distance using this gun turret, but it's probably best to kill all the other enemies in the room first and then to get close enough to the sandbag to be able to toss a grenade through. I'm just going to skip the rest of this segment, it's more of the same. You finally make it to the surface, to the satellite launch station.
So, what's this guy, Freeman? He'll pay. He will definitely pay.
The entrance is guarded by this puzzle. The TNT can't be detonated and the beams to activate it can't be dodged. You've got to use these crates to climb up and around the lip in the ceiling. This place only has 2 guards in it. You press the button in this room and the satellite is launched. You head back the way you came and no doubt get taken by surprise by a sniper who's camped up in this corner. You get onto another tram, but luckily this journey is short-lived. As you quickly derail and plummet down into a flooded chamber, and into Chapter 9, Apprehension. This is a chapter that I like, where it's more about figuring out how to get through the room that you're in, rather than finding the room that you're trying to get to. And there are some extended underwater segments which I think would give me more apprehension were it not for how I'm powered through it at breakneck speeds thanks to the 20 years of FPS experience behind me. You soon discover that you're stuck in a rather small section of the level unless you can find a way of traversing the water in the room that you entered from, which is done by releasing all of the barrels from their cages, which makes them float to the surface for you to cross over. You make your way past slippery floors and opportunistic barnacles, then get briefed by a scientist about a new and terrifying creature.
They said it was hauled from the Challenger Deep, but I'm positive that beast never swam in terrestrial waters until a week ago.
And a tranquilizer gun that might help you to defeat it. I used a barnacle to help raise me to the next platform. There's got to be a safer way of doing this, surely. This room's got a bit of a mean trap. But most of this level involves not falling into water, and the game finding creative ways to make you. In this room you have to activate these large crushy things, then jump from one to the other, maybe as training for the next chapter of the game. The game's obsession with spawning enemies behind you gets out of hand at this point. You're then told that Gordon's suit is tracking his location and that you're best off going through the older, abandoned parts of the facility, which means running through a freezing cold room that hurts Gordon even with his HEV suit on. It is here that he faces a new and incredibly agile kind of enemy.
Freeman, right? I've got a message for you. Make sure you don't...
And then, just as you think you've got everything sussed,
Where are we taking this Freeman guy? Topside for questioning. What the hell for? We got him. Let's kill him now. And if they find the body? Body? What body?
you're thrown into a rubbish compactor without any weapons and must escape before you get crushed. So you climb out using these crates and to safety. And then slip down the back, whereupon I found a conveniently placed crowbar. Then out of a tunnel I went, finally reaching the desert of Round Black Mesa and the 10th chapter, Residue Processing. This chapter is a short one and comprises mostly of an obstacle course, kind of like a 3D version of a 90s platformer game. I've got to say, these canyons are nostalgic. After the places I've been, having this much free space is a breath of fresh air that I just hope that Half-Life Alyx will be able to repeat. Having just been captured and stripped of all your weapons, this is like a mid-game reset where you suddenly face easier enemies without a weapon again, but in less forgiving situations. You must drain this water tower, then quickly jump in before it depletes too much. Then you enter the rubbish processing plant to begin the obstacle course. I met a security guard in here. He ran off while I checked out this first room. Sadly, he didn't last long. Turns out this whole place is one big dead end. I actually had to traverse that vat at the start of this sequence, which leads on to several rooms with death trap machines and slippery edges. Quick saving regularly here is sensible. There are many rooms of traps and machines that you have to survive. Then you reach a timed puzzle where you pause some crushes and must run through them before they activate again. After a conveyor belt maze, you make it onto the 11th chapter, Questionable Ethics. This seems to be a place where they're experimenting on the alien creatures you've encountered so far. Unfortunately for me, this starts with 5 enemies in a room, and I had just 6 bullets. Now empty of ammo. I had to beat this alien grunt to death with a crowbar. Not recommended. I then tortured headcrabs in the next room, before having to beat a soldier to death with my crowbar. I'm sure I must have missed a weapon or ammo somewhere. Still, I bumped into a security guard and together we attacked a large group of soldiers. Unfortunately, the security guard then released some headcrabs and we both died in the most pathetic way possible. But going there was worth it because it contained numerous advanced weapons that I could use, including snarks, which are weird little things which attack anything nearby. All hell broke loose a few rooms later in a large fight between the soldiers and aliens. Then I reached a facility where each room contained a number of enemies and a laser that needed to be turned on. The last of these had a Gauss gun. Not to be mistaken for Half-Life 2's gravity gun, this is a powerful laser that's more like the ones that you find on the vehicles in the second game. With all the lasers activated, I could turn on the big red laser. In a game that's done its best to explain to me what I need to do next, it tips all that on its head by warning me not to obstruct the laser shield. I reach a room with 3 scientists in, who warn me that the surgical equipment is dangerous and needs to be switched off.
I refuse to go another step.
Luckily, one of the scientists survives and I lead him to the front door. And, also luckily for him, if he dies it's game over.
No!
So he lives to need rescuing another day.
But I will let them know that you are coming.
I escape the laboratory, kill a guard too late to prevent a slaughter, then begin what I feel is the game's longest chapter, Surface Tension. Around this corner is one of the game's most iconic set pieces. So what you want to do here is to shoot the helicopter down and to kill the fish in the water so you can pass under the dam. But me being mostly a Half-Life 2 player, I didn't realise you could shoot the helicopter down with small arms, so just spent this whole level trying to avoid it. And I didn't even realise that there was an ichthyosaur in the water until this happened. Take 2 was much more successful. I passed through the dam and scaled up, around and through the canyons around Black Mesa, with the helicopter still circling me. After a fight against some soldiers, I opened the drain hatch. Some of the routes you've got to take are pretty hard to spot, especially this gap between the rocks just here. I jumped down into that drain hatch and towards another iconic moment from the game, which is accompanied by an even more iconic music track. Finally, near the end of this segment, I found a rocket launcher. But just as I got it, it sounded like the helicopter blew itself up. What an anticlimax. This bit ends with a climb up some ladders,
Nature.
and into the tunnels again. This is a bit of the game that drags on. It's essentially a series of arenas with different enemies to fight. The first has a water network down beneath. The second has another kind of tank. You don't actually have to go through this gap in the wall, it only leads to a small enemy camp. After killing the enemies in this section, it actually leads to a rather quiet part of the game, where it's just you, some scenery to traverse, and annoying snipers in some of the windows.
Help me. Somebody, please help me. I'm dying out here. Please, help me.
It's not made too obvious, but you need to clear the minefield just here. This sniper was a pain. You drop down through a hole in the roof and into a building laced with explosives. If they go off, then it's instant death. This is another good time to quick save, because even if you don't trip these mines, the headcrabs might. And even this lift can. I can't imagine anybody gets through this level the first time they play it. I celebrated escaping from this place by blowing it all up, which immediately killed me. This is when you get a Hornet gun of your own, with unlimited recharging ammunition. This next bit has some scripted explosions which will kill you if you're unlucky enough to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. You go outside and some aliens are dropped from a ship. But soon after, the whole place is carpet bombed, so rather than fighting them, you should instead retreat back from whence you came. You still have to deal with a tank and some soldiers though. Then you head into the building to clear it out with help from a security guard. Upstairs is an extensive armoury to restock your equipment, complete with another security guard. Then there's this bombed out building full of enemies. Then this courtyard with several waves of baddies. You must use this gun turret to blast the door open. The game now starts to get a bit more zen-y, with alien material growing on the walls, and a small army of aliens descending upon your position and conveniently placed gun turret. After clearing this, you use this alien trampoline to reach the first floor. This is when the war between the aliens and humans begins for real, with alien grunts and their homing wasp guns everywhere. These enemies can take a lot of damage, so whenever I could I just let them battle the soldiers, with my job being to finish off whoever was left at the end. I'll just show the highlights because it does go on for quite a while, with a few puzzle rooms serving as temporary respites from the fighting. This is when you encounter your old friend, the Garg, again. Who chases you through a parking lot and to this wall. You're able to trampoline over, then must call in an airstrike on its position. Which is also used to blast holes in the structure ahead of you, finally ending this chapter. Forget About Freeman is the chapter where the soldiers begin to pull out, acknowledging that whatever's happening in this base is beyond them. The first room collapses piece by piece, then it's onto a generic series of corridors with a tough combination of enemies to fight as you go. Then you get to what look like disco balls, but they harbour a dark surprise. I chose to go down the other corridor instead, which led to this hatch, and another snark nest which needs to be activated. You head through a quick sewer bit with more of those 90s era of traps. Then you come to the surface, engage in one final fight, then enter the facility for the final chapter that you will spend in Black Mesa. And at this point, my health was incredibly low. The Lambda reactor complex is filled with difficult fights and elaborate puzzles. You descend down into it on the funicular, kill some aliens, and then have another fight against some ninjas, which did a good job of sapping my health down again. You reach a scientist who tells you to power up the reactor.
We drew straws to see who should stay behind to let you through. Obviously, I drew the short one.
You're given time to replenish your health and to restock your supplies. Then are given the glue-on gun,
Just can't bring myself to use it on
which I'm sure is the most powerful thing in the game. So to power up this reactor, you must embark on a mission to each of the coolant systems. Both of these are filled with difficult and nastily spawned enemies that had no problem in bringing my health back down to low again.
I wonder if those boys could have made a bigger mess.
You swim through a waterlogged corridor and up this circular room laced with enemies and electrical arcs. Once you've cleared out these corridors, you've got to tackle the final puzzle in Black Mesa, which is a central room with 9 different teleports, each leading to unknown places. The whole thing is full of gotcha moments, but I'll summarise it all with this clip, where I finally glitch my way to the G-Man. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen. Some of these teleports led to certain death, others launch you back to somewhere else in the level. Quick save and head to port 7. This puts you into another room of teleports and floating platforms. Get through this, and you'll get to the last encounter with friendly humans that you'll have. What's this? A scientist with a shotgun? You're told this is all the fault of a single incredibly powerful being that you must destroy. You're given time to stock up.
We suspect there is an immense portal there, created by the intense concentration of a single powerful being. You will know it when you see it. I hate to say this, Gordon, but you must kill it if you can.
You get a special crouch jump move that launches you forwards at high velocity. Then enter this room where you must defend the scientist from attack until the teleport to the alien world is ready to jump into.
It's ready! You must go! Now!
You reach Zen, which makes up the last 4 chapters of the game, but they're incredibly short ones. Each is little more than a single thing. The first of these things is a series of floating platforms to jump between, leading to a cave full of weird alien things to get you accustomed to this world's bizarre rules. Gravity is low outside, but normal inside. You've got to activate some things to get a teleport to work. And that's the end of the chapter. The next one is a multi-stage battle against a big mummer, which is like a giant headcrab that spews out baby headcrabs to gnaw at your legs. These are so small and difficult to see that they're a real pain. You've got to inflict damage to this creature until it decides to open up the next area. This happens a few times until you eventually kill it in this room. Then into this teleport. This next chapter is a bit longer. It's much like the first Zen chapter in that there are floating platforms, only now you're trying to head upwards rather than down. I killed myself several times on the trampoline things, they don't seem to do anything useful. Instead, to climb upwards in this level, counterintuitively involves entering an underground chamber of enemies until you find this spike, which rises up into the air. You've then got to drop down from platform to platform until you reach the teleport. This leads to a series of alien canyons with an assortment of enemies, including those large tentacle monsters in their natural habitat. Sneak past these and you enter a large factory. Inside the barrels are enemies. This bit goes on for a while as you clear rooms and use moving platforms to climb higher and higher. Reach the top, enter this teleport, and you're taken to this black and red shrine. Inside, the final boss awaits, which happens to be a big floating baby thing with a head that can open up. The challenge of this fight is figuring out what you're meant to do, which involves shooting these glowing crystals to stop the boss from regenerating health. I tried reaching the top of the room but couldn't, so just stood on this first platform until the thing teleported me to a room that I had to climb. I reached the top of this and was teleported back to the main boss, whose head was now open, revealing a big glowy thing inside. I had to leap up high to shoot at it, but but the boss would quickly respond by floating higher to obstruct my shots. But I eventually killed it.
Gordon Freeman in the flesh. Or rather, in the hazard suit. I took the liberty of relieving you of your weapons. Most of them were government property. As for the suit, I think you've earned it. I have recommended your services to my employers. If you're interested, just step into the portal and I will take that as a yes. Otherwise, well, I can offer you a battle you have no chance of winning. Time to choose.
The G-Man gives you a choice. If you don't enter the teleport, he takes you to a room full of horrible-looking sprite aliens, and presumably your demise. So your only real option is to jump into the teleport, and to be put into cold storage until the world needs another Half-Life game again.
It's wisely done, Mr. Freeman. I will see you up ahead.